working toward creating a global spiritual community rooted in profound love, which cultivates wonder, imagination, and the courage to act. Adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic has been difficult for many bricks and mortar congregations. Early on in the pandemic, we were in a unique position to assist many congregations with the transition. We hosted special episodes of The View, provided advice and counseling to religious professionals, and trained congregations for live streaming worship, all while providing robust online programming for our members. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine to our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison, and investing in innovative ministry. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and to fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message. Hello, I'm Aisha Hauser. Welcome to another episode of The View. I really should know what numbers we're on because I think it would be fun to keep track of that. I am in Seattle, Washington, land of the Duwamish, the Coast Salish people. And I am very excited about today's show. We are going to have a co-host show. We're going to get to know each other a little more, ask each other some fun questions. You as the audience will have the opportunity to ask us questions, which is always fun. So we're going to start off hearing from each other. And then I'm going to introduce our new co-host. So QuianaDenae, how are you? Where are you?
And Hi. I am QuianaDenae Perkins. I am physically in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is also the land of the Potawatomi people, but also land that was worked with Black and brown labor, and I will never forget that. I'm really excited today. One, because we have a new co-host, but also I'm going to sneak this in here right now because she won't watch the whole thing, but she'll watch this little part if Mama makes her. It is my daughter's 15th birthday. So we went and had sushi yesterday. I've got her present, and we'll have cake and all of those things. But I just I'm looking dead at the camera so you know that I'm talking to you. Abijah Kanane, Mama absolutely loves and adores you. You are a smart, brave, amazing, sassy, silly, big sister, best daughter, and I love you, and I can't wait to just get my arms around you later and just huggle you. So I'm embarrassed in my own public space. So now I pass it to my friend DC. Thank you for letting me have that little moment to, love on my baby.
Oh my God, that was just so sweet. Like, oh gee whiz, happy birthday, like 15-year-old child. Oh my goodness. I'm DC Fortune. I'm coming to you from Northumberland, Pennsylvania, home of the Susquehanna people on the banks of the north branch of the Susquehanna River. And life is pretty good. It's been warm. My kitchen remodeling seems to be almost done. Almost done. And it feels like spring, even though it's mid-February. I'm gonna stick my fingers in my ears and pay attention to the weather and not the calendar, and believe that it's coming. And I'm gonna hand it back to Aisha, who can do the fantastic introduction of our new co-host. Aisha.
We are so excited to welcome. So Janine Gelsinger, your first time on The View was the super fan show. We actually have enough fans of The View that we were able to do a show of the folks who joined us almost every week for, I'm going to say, I don't know, years. Janine Gelsinger Janine Gelsinger, I'm just going to read and try not to ad-lib here, currently serves as the co-executive director of the Unitarian Universalist Justice Arizona UU Jazz, the State Action Network. Recently, she became a consultant for the UUA board. Oh, I didn't know that. On the Article 2 outreach. I probably should have known that, Janine. Oh, no wonder you're posting about Article 2 all the time on your Facebook page. Okay, I'm connecting all the dots. The Article 2 outreach and engagement project, and she is deeply passionate about engaging UUs and living our values out loud. Welcome, Janine. Tell us where you are, how you are, and I am so very excited to have you join us as a co-host.
Thank you. I'm so excited too. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. This is such an exciting and amazing opportunity. I'm Janine Gelsinger, for those watching that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet. I am physically in Phoenix, Arizona, which is also the unceded land of the Otham people, where it's currently 45 degrees. And although that may sound balmy to some folks in other locations, my children this morning were freezing. There was frost on the grass. We all got a notification on our phone that we were going to have a freeze overnight, and everyone was panicking. So we are in the coldest weather it gets here in Phoenix. And I still have short sleeves on because this is how Phoenix works.
What we're going to do today, I'm so happy. It's so fun to be together. So just to give everyone a word, both Reverend Dr. Michael Tino and Christina Rivera, our co-hosts and my co-leads on the ministry team of the CLF, are traveling. So it is the four of us today. And we already have some fun questions we want to ask each other. And I'm going to start with an easy softball. Coffee or tea? How do you take it? So I love coffee. I lived in Colombia in South America. Now I live in Seattle. So I'm an insufferable coffee snob. Like, I own it. I do not take sugar. I like to froth. Well, now I froth oat milk not because I'm a vegan, no shade to vegans. We love vegans. We affirm everybody, but because I become lactose intolerant. I hate that. So whoever made lactate needs a Nobel Prize for peace, because I could still eat cheese, but I'm fine with oat milk. And so I gave a very long answer as to my coffee. And then the rest of the day, I drink tea. I only drink coffee in the morning. So whoever wants to go next. Janine, let's go. Janine, what do you like?
So I am kind of like a fancy espresso drinker. I do have my Starbucks with me today. But one thing about me is I don't drink caffeine. And I think sometimes that might be like breaking a UU cardinal sin from the reactions I get around that. But I find I have more consistent energy if I don't drink caffeine at all. So I haven't for about 15 years. But I do like sugar. So I usually drink like mochas or caramel lattes or something with lots of sugar in it. And like Aisha, I'm also a non-dairy person. So usually with oat milk or almond milk. So I have that kind of bougie coffee order that has all the things in it and, on brand for me. What about you?
Go ahead, QuianaDenae. You're muted, honey.
You're muted, boo.
I muted myself because I was drinking coffee and I didn't want to make it slurp on the recording. I was trying to be a good kid. This is a hard question for me because I really love coffee and tea, and I went through phases of like fancy coffee and not fancy coffee. And I went through a tea phase, and now I own 6 teapots. and a whole bunch of different tea strainers. And I love them. And it was a good obsession for 18 months, but it's over. And I don't know how to tell people that because they keep getting me tea stuff. It's like, oh, you caught me in an ADD, like, shiny thing cycle. And now it has to end, people. But I don't want to say it because they thought so hard about a gift. It's like, oh, how do I tell you? Except I just said it on the VU, so maybe that's enough. So
Don't count.
Coffee, I like sweet cream, but no sugar in my coffee, right? So like if I have sweetened cream, then I won't, but like right now I have some coffee from the Panera because I like hospital food. Don't judge me. You don't know my life. And and it's just sugar and it's just coffee and cream because I didn't have sugary cream, but I didn't want sugar. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, and then my tea, there's this tea that I have that I bought recently, or at the farmer's market this summer, and it turns blue. And it's this beautiful, vibrant blue that I'm just like, I've been like savoring it because whenever I drink it, I feel fancy. I don't know, it becomes, so I do.
Does it taste?
It does. It tastes a little bit like, maybe because it's in my mind, it tastes like lavender. It tastes like luxury. It tastes like relaxing, even if
I wonder if it's corn flour. I wonder if it's what it is.
I might run and go grab it just because that's who I am as a person. But overall, I like hot beverages. I will say this. I just tell y'all this quick story. The other day, I had a little bit of a headache at like 4:30. So I was like, let me drink some instant coffee because I have that when I don't want to clean the pot. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning when I couldn't sleep, I was like, oh, that's why we don't drink coffee at 4 o'clock. So I've learned that it has to be before 1. I can have coffee before 1 and I can have tea between 1 and 6. And then I switch to other beverages after 6 o'clock. Other beverage choices.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to pass it to DC.
Oh, I am like a sensation. I don't know what the word is. Like, I like my sensations strong. I like the flavors strong. I like dark chocolate. I like dark coffee. I like hot food.
Bold,
yeah, bold, right? So my coffee that I have at home, I actually, because I'm too cheap to buy the fancy schmancy bougie coffee, but what I'll do is I'll buy like the darkest, like number 10 can of cheap ass coffee. And then I will take a pound of the espresso blend that's it's in like the yellow foil brick, right? That stuff. And I'll make one of those into whatever French roast giant can of coffee I have. And that's what I make my coffee with in the morning. So like you can almost chew it. It's really yummy. And then I put in half and half, or light cream. Like I have an aunt that puts skim milk in coffee, and I'm just like, that's just not right.
Might as well be water. I mean, now we're just getting judgmental, and rightfully so.
Right. Yeah. No, that shit's just not. It's just not nasty. It's just nasty. But yeah. So I like the I like whole milk. I like real cream. I like real butter. I like dark coffee. So yeah. And then like I have like all manner of different ridiculous little things to make coffee. I have, I think maybe 3 French presses, and yeah, and I've got one of those giant machines that you can put the beans in the top, and you push the button, and it grinds them, and then it makes coffee. Yeah, that's very exciting. It's a pain in the ass to clean, but it's very exciting and it impresses people. But yeah, so QuianaDenae wants to hold us have us actually have productive conversation.
No, I wouldn't use the word productive. What I would want is
okay, good.
Janine got a little bit of grounding in the work that they're currently doing, and so I thought if people want to get to know us, we should also maybe ground it in the work that we're doing. And so I just had this weird idea. People might want to know how we're connected to the UU of the VU. That's all. That's what my mind.
Oh. All right. I'm serving a little bitty congregation in central Pennsylvania where apparently no food tastes.
That's true.
Yeah. What? And so you've been there. You're the minister there.
I'm
Can I ask a question? How long have you been
sure.
in ministry, DC? I don't know that, and I'm curious right
Oh,
now.
I graduated seminary in 2014, but
Should we get you an
been like,
abacus, one of those like wooden things with the balls?
yeah, thanks. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, after the conversations that have been online this past week about the virtues of analog versus digital clocks. Um, but I am totally an analog person. Listen, yeah, no, I've been ordained since 2015. And so this is like the third, like I did an interim, then I did a settled ministry, and now I'm doing contract ministry at this little congregation in central Pennsylvania. We are deep in red political rural country. And it's this fun little group of people who are like, yeah, whatever, we're just all going to do the justice thing. So get out of the way. Yeah. So they're a good bunch. And we just had we're really excited about some grants we're working on. So making our footprint a little bit bigger here in rural central Pennsylvania. God, Tanner,
The blue
take
dots.
the camera off me,
We need
please.
the
You're
blue
making me
dots
nervous.
in red states, and I think we forget already. Well, Pennsylvania is more of a purple state, but we need blue dots everywhere.
Pennsylvania is purple by virtue of the fact that Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, and Philadelphia are blue.
Right. Same in Washington State. I live in
Right.
Seattle, almost the furthest west, except for the islands. And when I first went east to take my daughter to school, which is about 4.5 hour drive from Seattle, I started seeing Trump signs. I had no clue, because why would I? I live in a little bubble and I like my
Right.
bubble. And I'm like, what the actual fuck? And then the further east you go, the bigger, literally, it was starting to turn into billboards, people on the side of their barns. And it was then that I
That's what I got.
realized, Seattle, basically the sliver of the west coast of Washington State's what keeps it blue. But there's a lot of hostility to liberals. And we have Proud Boys here in Seattle. It's quite gross and nasty.
Yeah, I've got a next door neighbor that has a lot of the Trump and signs and flags and everything else. So I'm thinking about painting my garage rainbow colors.
Rainbow colors, yes, please.
So I'll just jump in here and give you some grounding about where I am in the work that I do, because you want to learn about me, right? So I am physically in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but I am a student at Star King School for the Ministry. And it is located in Oakland, right? So I'm already a remote student. So because I like that remote and my Wi-Fi is so good at my house, I thought, let me be a remote intern. So
I think you're being facetious, QuianaDenae.
Well, yes, and if you don't have good Wi-Fi, you make different choices with your life. I'm not gonna lie, right? Like, so Wi-Fi access is reals. So I was lucky enough and blessed enough to be I have been working with Reverend Sean Parker Dennison out of Southern Oregon. So I am a multi-platform intern right now. And what that means, y'all, is I'm supporting 3 churches in Southern Oregon. I support the churches of Grants Pass, Rogue Valley, and Klamath Falls. And they're all kind of within, I'd say, 60 miles of each other. But just for the record, Klamath is in the mountains. It's like 40,000 feet up in the air or something. I don't even understand it. They keep saying numbers at me, but I'm from a flat place. So I'm just like, oh, it's up there. Like, I don't get it, but they keep telling me. And then so it's really interesting because one's in the mountains, one's in the foothills, and one's at the foothills against the river. So it's actually really beautiful when I go visit. So I go there. I'll go there 2 more times before my time is up. And so yeah, I'm a student and I'm an intern minister. And then in the summer, I have a bunch of different roles. This summer, I get to do Thrive Chicago with our young Black and Brown youth in Chicago. And yeah, that's the stuff that and I do CLF stuff. I do this with you all. And then another little project that I'm managing that really super matters to me is Black Women of the Chalice. We are Black women seminarians, and Unitarian Universalism is our primary faith, grouping. And we get together once a month and support each other. Last month, we were blessed to have Reverend Carol Sissel. If you are a Black woman, which is trans inclusive when I say that, and the seminary, we're going to have Dr. Quiana with us in March. And if you sign up to be in come to Black Women of the Chalice, I actually have copies of her book that I will be mailing out to every single person, Black woman who comes. So if you're a Black woman in seminary, I have a book for you. Come get it. I just need your address. I'll mail it out. And I guess I just wanted to share that because it is super important. But the other thing I want to do while I have the floor is when we normally just because what y'all gonna do, kick me off? We usually spend a little bit of time at the front making sure we do announcements or just kind of any communal cleanup. And I just need to say I am down the street from Lansing, Michigan, and there is a lot of energy, a lot of heart, and a lot of space for that community that's pouring out right now. And I would be remiss in my role as a minister and in my role as a community member to not call out the tragedy that happened there early this week and the pain that is reeling through all of Michigan, all of us right now. So I just want to, different energy. Sorry, I didn't want to forget it because we get so ramped up and excited, but it is just imperative for me to call out the MSU community and to name the energy that they're processing right now. Who wants to follow that up?
Right, go ahead, Janine. Welcome.
So you work at, so to bring in a lighter note, tell us about working at Jazz and some of the work you're doing in Arizona and how it all is stacking up and how it looks and how the contributions you're making to the greater world.
Yeah, absolutely. So my biggest role in the last 4 years has been as the executive director of the State Action Network in Arizona. So state action networks are independent 501c3s, and our role is to organize all of the UU congregations in the state for justice work that lives out our values. And recently in January, we moved to a co-leadership model, which we're really, really excited about. In fact, one of the first times I even heard about co-leadership models was at Aisha's workshop at GA in maybe like 2017, I think. And so since I started at UJazz in 2019, our goal has been to move to co-leadership, and we just finally got the budget to be able to do it. So I've transitioned to the co-director of partnerships and programming. Which is great because it means now I have a co-director that does finance and operations, which means
Yay.
I don't have to do finance and operations anymore. Which,
yeah, totally.
if you know me, my skills are all people skills and relationship skills, and not so much spreadsheet skills. So I'm very excited about that. One of the biggest projects we have going on right now in the state of Arizona for UU Jazz is that we organized an Arizona OWL facilitator training. All of us know that reproductive justice is super important to UUs as a theological piece and a historical piece. And in Arizona, it's pretty challenging right now. So as we worked to think about what we could do, one of the things that UUs already bring to that conversation and do really well is OWL, our sex education program that's put together through Unitarian Universalism and the United Church of Christ as a partnership. And so in like 2 weeks, March 3rd through 5th, we have 60 new sex ed educators being trained in the state of Arizona. Every single congregation in our state will be offering OWL next year. And we're really, really proud. One piece of it that I think is especially exciting is that not only are we training folks from all of our congregations, but we have brought in several partners, including the Launchpad, which is an LGBTQ youth center in Prescott, Arizona, which is one of those rural red places that we were talking about, DC. And then also Black Phoenix Organizing Collective. We don't have a UU congregation downtown Phoenix. And so Black Phoenix Organizing Collective is one of our partners that are stationed in downtown and South Phoenix. So we're going to train them for free so that they can offer the OWL programming to their own community as facilitators as well.
Wow.
That is such a great example of the kind of imaginative ministry we can engage in as UUs for the wider world, offering OWL training, which stands for Our Whole Lives, for community groups, whether or not they're UU. That is just outstanding. And I've always been not always, I mean, since I've been a UU or since I discovered Our Whole Lives, it's been puzzling to me why it's not, it feels like it should be much bigger than it is. Theories as to why, but that is a rabbit hole we don't need to go down right now. But I think especially given the state of the attack on bodily autonomy and the restrictions in many, many states of how you can even talk about healthy sexuality. And so our congregations really can be a place where these conversations and factual learning about healthy and holistic sexuality can be taught. And so that kudos to your group, and hopefully, well, not all, does every state have an action network? I want to say no. I don't know. No, yeah, I didn't think
like
so.
22 or 23 out of the 50 states.
And usually they're either purple or blue. I don't know. Well, is Arizona considered a red state?
It depends on who you ask.
Purpley.
It's purple.
Our governor and both of our senators are blue, which is a big deal in Arizona. That just happened very recently.
Huge.
Our state legislature, both chambers are still red. So it's actually really interesting. We do a lot of legislative work, and this is the first year we have a veto. We have a blue governor. So every year we've had, a red governor, both chambers, but it's like one vote away in each chamber. And so every year the strategy has been, all the bad bills come out, we run down to the Capitol, testify in legislature, and our strategy has always been just get that one R vote. So all of our strategies are targeting, like, can we get that least red to vote our way and kill it? And then this year we have a veto. So we know all of the worst, most egregious stuff won't go through because our governor will veto it. And so it's a really interesting recalibration of what our strategy is. And some of the worst bills we know won't go through now. And so figuring out like where our energy works best. But we also don't have quite the votes to get through some positive bills that we would like. So it's still kind of targeting that little swing area, but now it's like, can we get something good through? So it's very interesting to be on the cusp of changing your state from red to blue.
And it's so within reach. That's the exciting part. Having it with it feels like when last week the show we interviewed Paul Ortiz in Florida, of all fucking places, and he made an excellent point. And he said, this isn't just Florida. The money's coming from the entire, all the states and all the conservatives. So there's a really concerted effort to kind of topple any kind of true freedom. And it's funny, you got in some ways there's kind of a grudging, like I kind of sit in awe of the group that is literally banning books, kind of railing at us for saying, hey, be sensitive to people's fucking pronouns, you assholes. Like we're the ones who get told we're trying to curb,
censor people, right?
Censor and curb. So what is giving you all hope? Or the other, okay, so I had two questions actually before we started today. One is, what is giving you hope? But the other one is, I'm curious, for those of you who preach or even kind of give speeches, what are you preaching about during the apocalypse? Oh, QuianaDenae.
There you go. You're muted again, honey.
Unmute, my friend.
I was working on, I just want attention. So that's why I keep doing that. You guys are like my Valentines. If I ignore me a little, love me a little, ignore me a little, that's what I got. So no, that is such a good question, because I spent yesterday like agonizing over a sermon. And I'm realizing that so the way that I write a sermon, or what I talk about, has been lately the intersection of Unitarian Universalism and different topics. So I'm actually writing a series. If you're looking for a series for your church, I'm available. So this Manifesting Liberation series, did you like that hair toss? It was so subtle. I started out with Radical Welcome in January. In February, we're doing Black History and Unitarian Universalism intersection. Women's History Month would be March. April is Environmental Justice and Unitarian Universalism. We're going to talk economics in May. We're going to look at the intersection of reparations and economic justice. And then in June, we're going to look at the contribution of the gays, theys, thems, and youth, because that's, what's going to happen in June. But I have to write a different sermon. I'm going to visit Oregon. I'm going to Southern Oregon in March, and my sermons when I'm live are different from the series. Anyway, that's my whole in here thing. But here's what I'm going to preach about. I'm realizing I have about 13 minutes to preach and to explain something to people. You are not a hostage to Unitarian Universalism. We are not a faith where your parents brought you here every Sunday and had to be here. This is not a 7-day-a-week Adventist experience, and I'm not calling that out. I'm saying my mother grew up in a Baptist church where if you could not walk up to somebody and say what church you were from, you were ostracized from community. Even if they didn't go to your church, you had to have a church affiliation to function. If you went to a job and where your people sit at on Sunday? They said the middle pew, back pew, where were you at? That's not how that's not the Unitarian Universalist experience, even if you have it from birth, right? You are here by choice. And so you can choose to be here or not be here, but you cannot, and you can choose to be here and be shitty, but know that we, the folks who are here and happy, are going to call out that shittiness, right? Like, you don't get to be here by choice and be shitty. You can be here by choice and be happy to be here, but you got to pick a hustle, right? You can't have them all. But I think the second thing is that, as I write this sermon called Are We There Yet?, which is really focusing on the fact that Liberation is a tourist location. It is not a place you set up residency. We are not going to get there. We're going to visit Liberation, realize that we left somebody out and have to go back and get them, not because we did something wrong or they did something wrong. But once I get in my Liberation, I'm like, shit, I missed somebody. Let me put my shoes back on. So we have to stop treating Liberation like this destination. Like, it's not a place we're going to move into, y'all. It is a place we're going to visit, we're going to respite, and we're going to keep moving. So all of that is to say, if you're here by choice, it means you can choose to leave. And know that while you're here, I got 13 minutes to tell them the truth. I don't have time to be cute, right? Like, you flew me all the way out here. I'm here. Let's have an honest dialogue. And then I want to tell you the third thing too. So here's the other part. If you're here, you're here by choice. And if you're here, I'm going to need you to engage in an active living covenant. This is the other thing. Ready? See, you shouldn't have got me started. You shouldn't let me go first, Aisha. I am a called minister. It means somewhere in the marrow of my spirit, a bell went off and said, the work that will fill your soul resides in Unitarian Universalism, right? I was called here to dance, sing, move, vibrate, be vibrant, to be an active source of joy. I did not come to preside over a hospice and a funeral. I did not get called to be a part of a faith that is dying. I did not get called. I write orders of service and living documents. I do not write obituaries on Sunday mornings. So if you want to be a part of a faith that is dying, you can go find that minister. I'm not a minister for the dead. Now, I believe in transition and I believe in life. And I believe that when it's your time to go, you will go with all of the blessings that come with transition of spirit. But I'm not presiding over a funeral of a faith. I did not get called to be at your funeral of Unitarian Universalism because you don't like the word anti-racism. Not the one that lives in my not on the one that almost had a woman touch my hair today at the fitness center. No, I did not get called for that. So if that's what you are here for, I will give you a place to go mourn. I will give you a grief bench. You can go sit. You can go have that work, baby. But you came here for the classic station. I came here for the remix. We about to dance. I don't know what y'all doing. But my 8 values that center love and my little flower of values is what I came to preach about, came to be about. That's the faith I have to live in for the next 25 years. Whatever we had 25 years ago, God bless its heart, it got me in the door.
And I'm not ashamed of the 7 principles or the 8th for that matter. But I cannot keep living in them because that's not what I was called to dance to. I was called to dance to this. So I'm gonna stop now. I'm gonna stop. I need a drink. But that's what I'm preaching about right now. I'm preaching to the living for the living future.
I mean, amen. I love when QuianaDenae takes us to church on the View. Amen to that. This is the living tradition. Revelation is not sealed. That's I heard that from my colleague Gail Forsyth Vale over 15 years ago, easy. And I live with that as central to the faith that I live, along with love and liberation. And I love that liberation is a place we're going to visit, and then we're going to put our shoes on and go get other folks and accompany each other. That is so profound. And I think the other thing, Dr. Takia Amin from Blue, Black Lives of UU, always says, that Unitarian Universalism does not belong to white people. So it's not only not dying, we're not going to kind of have dirges and funerals every weekend. We are a living faith, and we are alive here, and we're going to embrace what that means. And there's a quote that I'm not sure where it came from, but if the world ended tomorrow, I would still plant an apple tree today. So somebody brilliant said it, maybe Martin Luther. I don't know. I didn't go to seminary. My path was social work and religious education, which I love. And I was trying to think about what I've preached over the past couple of years. I preached about my tattoos, which I didn't get till I was after 50 and divorced. I preached about forest bathing. And I think getting to nature as often as we can. And I am very privileged to live where I live in Seattle, that I can walk to a park from almost anywhere, and beautiful. And I mean, there's a commitment to green space in this city and this area. And I think the thing with Unitarian Universalism, our blessing is our curse. It is absolutely extraordinary and beautiful and revolutionary that it is the living tradition, right? Chosen faith. We choose this every day. And I think it has the unintended and unfortunate consequence of having created a kind of elitism of somehow we know things better or differently. The first UU congregation I joined way back in the early 2000s in New Jersey, this lovely man who actually ended up becoming my friend, an elderly gentleman who is literally a physicist, like a brilliant mind. And he said, this was coffee hour, nobody smart that I know believes in God. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm particularly stupid. And, some days I believe in God, some days I don't. I mean, it's hard to be on team God nowadays, that's for sure. But I also don't throw that away, So I think having that elitism has cost us the vibrancy and engagement of people who could bring a lot more imagination. But I think that's changing because QuianaDenae is called to this space. The 4 of us are called to this faith to lead. And it's beautiful and exciting. And there is tension and pain sometimes. And it is hard, I think, to lead when sometimes there are folks who are literally fighting against the tide and just saying, I don't want change. I don't want you to say the words white supremacy culture in this congregation. That is very much functioning within white supremacy culture. I don't want you to use the words anti-racism. I mean, it's stuff that's like, are you arguing against gravity too? So I'm not arguing it. I'm not going to argue that gravity is real, and I'm not arguing that white supremacy culture is real. So I'm going to send this over to Janine before I go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, speaking of white supremacy culture, what am I preaching about lately? It's, we all kind of have a mind meld going on, I think. And I don't preach every week. I'm not a minister. I'm a organizer. But one of the projects I've been working on lately is I recently got asked by the UUA Board of Trustees to advise on some organizing strategy for engaging congregations with Article 2. So we've been talking about that, all of us. And I think the piece that I've been having conversations about the most recently is around conflict avoidance in congregations, which we know conflict avoidance is part of white supremacy culture as well, right? I mean, it doesn't only affect white people because dominant culture affects everybody. And so what we're really grappling with is figuring out, why haven't congregations engaged more with the new Article 2, right? And we can say, well, it's because of the pandemic, and that's partially true. And we can say it's because we didn't know, and we can figure out maybe some communications pieces that need to shift or change around that. But I think there's also a response that I've been hearing that's, oh, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. That sounds like drama. People are going to fight about it. Or, I have people in my congregation that are getting information from other sources, from, the Save the Principles movement. And that's where they're finding out information. And it seems like a big fight, and I don't even want to deal with it. And sometimes that comes from religious professionals, and sometimes it comes from lay leaders, board presidents. And while I have a lot of compassion for that, and I understand that our religious professionals have been through a lot in the last few years, and some of them don't have the support that they need to engage everything, and that sometimes their priorities are different, right? They've got people dying, they've got congregations in search. I have compassion for all that and understand it. And if we are not willing to grapple with the actual values of our faith, what the F are we doing? What are we even doing? Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. I'm allowed to say I'm allowed to say that here. What the fuck are we doing, you use? Because this is fundamental to our faith, right? This is how we express our values and who we are. And we can't pretend that it's really just about, change management and language shifts if we also know it's about anti-racism and wanting to avoid that. And that a lot of the movements against it are about not wanting to be accountable to covenant. So I've been working on MAP is actually my project, is mapping congregations. So a survey will be done in the next couple weeks and start going out through religious professional networks, through some of the clusters, through some of the state action networks, in a series of one-on-ones. If you've ever done political organizing, if you've ever done deep canvassing, where it's more than just calling people and trying to get them out to vote, but it's calling and having a more in-depth conversation where you then kind of fill out a survey as you're talking to them about congregations and where they're at. If the vote were tomorrow, where are you at? And then what have you done in your congregation? Have you had a sermon? Have you done a small group? Is your board talking about it? Where are you getting the information you have around Article 2? Because one thing as an organizer that I've noticed is that we don't actually have a continuous communication feedback loop from where people are getting information to how they're receiving information. And so I was really excited that Meg Riley, that the UA board asked if I would come on and work on this project, because I feel like we need to get an understanding of where are we actually at in order to make a plan for how to deeply engage people more. And this project is not a vote yes Article 2 project. This is not really vote either way. This is about, do you have the resources you need to engage in your congregation? If not, why not? And then figuring out a strategic plan to make sure that's available. So that was a lot, but that's what we're talking about recently.
Danza DeLuna said, thank you, one of our viewers. I feel like a lot of the resistance to Article 2 document is actually, we said white supremacy isn't a thing around here. Yeah, there's a whole group of folks who since 2017, so 2017 was the UU white supremacy teach-in movement, the spring of our enlightenment, as I've heard it called. But before that, some of the folks who were instrumental in diverse Unitarian Universalist multicultural ministries said when the word anti-racist came into play, people fought against that. So is it really the words? I mean, let's be clear. But yes, to this point, and I'd love to hear from the three of you. I think the resistance to Article 2, my favorite, again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, save our principles. I'm sorry. First of all, what I say, needlepoint them into a or cross stitch them into a pillow if you want them. But I also want you to name 2 through 6 without looking, because I don't think these folks who want to save our principles could name them without reading them. So I'm sorry, I just tangent. But yeah, it's absolutely resistance to anti-racist work, to white supremacy, and it is absolutely indicative and our version of the right wing, of what's going on in this country nationally, of not wanting to talk about critical race theory, not wanting to talk about indigenous history, African American history. I mean, yeah,
You're
I'd love
using
to
the
hear
same
your thoughts.
horrid language.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible.
DC, speak on it. Speak on it.
Oh God, my people. I'm preaching here. I preach almost every week ish here in central Pennsylvania, and one of the things that, as a small congregation that is geographically isolated, there's not a big sort of connection with Unitarian Universalism writ large. They feel very much like they're an isolated little group. They've had experience in the past before with a district exec who very clearly told them that small rural congregations were not a priority for the UUA. And that was one of the first things I heard when I got here. And boy, sometimes we have no idea how deep our words cut when we say things. And so, like, I've been working to build this connection with, the mothership, right, in Boston. And like this weekend, we're doing a pulpit swap with one of the closest congregations, about an hour and a half away, over in State College. And I'm going over there, and Tracy Sprouse, who's serving as interim there, is coming here. It's going to be really cool. And I'm going to be preaching on Article 2. And one of the things that, when I talked about Article 2 here, people had no idea what it was about. What is Article 2? They're like, what's Article 1? I mean, what the heck, right? And I've been blessed that I've been able to explain to my folks that that our foundational document was forward thinking enough that there was a passage written in that said, we need to evolve in order to stay relevant. Like, we need to check in on that on a regular basis so that we continue to be relevant in an ever-changing world where, by the way, we understand that truth is ever being revealed, right? It's not written in stone. And so my people were like, oh, that makes total sense. Like, why are people mad? Right? Like, honestly, that was the response I got first off. And one of the things I talked about early in my time here was the Humanist Manifesto, which is a really cool document, and it's also in its third complete version. It's in its third version. They've completely rewritten it twice. They got rid of all of that. I have no idea.
Oh.
I have no idea. It's online. I know that. Like, and I looked at the first version, and then the second version, and then the third version, and they've done the thing. They switched from mankind and brotherhood language to more inclusive gender language. And the third version is now talking about systems of power and oppression and exploitation, right? Like they get it. Like, so it makes sense. And so doesn't it make sense for us to do the same sort of thing? I had another really smart thought, but it went away.
While you're trying to remember.
Yeah, Janine, rescue me from my passion.
Let me remember after. One thing I want to say, which is kind of a both and, is that there are some leaders, right, in the anti-Article 2 kind of thing that are probably organizing for nefarious reasons, for reasons like they don't want to be accountable to anti-racism. And we also have a lot of regular UUs, possibly the majority of them in our congregations, in the pews, who also don't want to pass Article 2. And not necessarily for those reasons, but just because they are confused, they don't have enough information, and they have this connection to the principles from when they became UUs. You know, QuianaDenae was talking earlier about, you know, a lot of us weren't raised UU, right? A lot of us are. And I mean, I wasn't. And I remember the first day I became a Unitarian Universalist. I remember the first time I was in a congregation and I read those principles. And I remember thinking, wow, I didn't even know there was a church that was like this. This feels like what I believe. But I think the issue there, and a lot of really amazing faith leaders that I look up to, like Joy Barry and Michael Slack, have put their finger on it, that it's a faith formation issue. If we have so many people joining Unitarian Universalism as adults, and the only thing that they understand about our faith is the 7 principles, well, then of course it's going to be really, really hard to change those principles, because that's the only thing that they know. And so part of this is about adult faith development and faith formation, and how do we engage people in understanding and examining our values, and also doing that in community as part of their church. So maybe it's not that you have auctions all the time and fun brunches, but maybe instead at those gatherings, you're doing what a church is supposed to do and grappling with the values of
potlucks.
So I know that DC remembered, but I want to comment on Janine. So DC, do you want to remember? And then I'm going to go back to Janine, if that's okay, to respond.
Sure. What I was remembering was I had a conversation today, and we were talking about, you know, how people resist change. And I said, I know people who are still mad about the gray hymnal, right? They're mad about the gray hymnal. They don't like what the gray hymnal did. They want to go back. They with longing and familiarity on the blue hymnal, right? And I preached at a church, at a summer chapel that still uses the red hymnal, which is like 1939, I think. And one of the things that I talked about, I remembered what it was with the second principle thing, is that I said, when our language becomes too holy to adjust, then it has become our creed. And and if we can't touch, like, we pride ourselves on being a non-creedal faith, that means that we don't have a creed, right? That means that we don't have a creed. That means that these 7 things cannot be our creed. And the commission that was tasked with looking at this, examining this a decade and some change ago, we as a denomination did ourselves a great disservice by rejecting the work of that commission, because now here we are, we've got people who became Unitarian Universalists 20 odd years ago who have never known anything but the 7 principles, you know? And while we say we don't have a creed, that language has become creedal. I've got a beautiful print on the wall in my office that has the 7 principles all written down in fancy letters and stuff. And nobody wants to feel obsolete. Nobody wants to feel like they've done harm, even without intention, especially without intention. Nobody wants to find out that they accidentally hurt someone. And so it's much easier to deny that exists than to acknowledge that I have been complicit in white supremacist culture. I have been complicit in the harm that is systemic in this world that feels too big for me to get my arms around. And it's just, sometimes if a truth is too big, it's easier to deny it and believe a ridiculous lie than to acknowledge just how responsible I am, for my part in upholding this enormous unfair system that benefits me and hurts others.
DC, what you're saying is so profound. I just want to take just a breath, because what you're saying is so heavy, but in a good way. And I think it ties back into that being a visitor, right? Like, if our faith we are a tourist faith. And I don't mean that in the negative. I mean that it should be moving. It should be running water. It should not be stagnant.
Oh, I like the running water. I like that.
Yeah. You know how you don't get mosquito? If you have stagnant water in your yard, that's how you get mosquitoes.
Yes.
I don't want mosquitoes.
Ooh.
I don't do stagnant water in my yard for any reason. But I want to come back to something. One of the things that I've done in my time as an intern, but I sell this service too, in case you need some classes in your community, is that's my entrepreneurial hair flip. That's when I want to make some money on the side. I just put my hair. That's what that is. Because one of the things I've done in SOUP, in the communities in Oregon, is I did a class called UU Cornerstone. And we went over some basic language. What is covenant? What is Article 2? What are our principles? What are our sources? And now, when I go back in March, we're going to do a class called Room by Room, Building Your Theological House. Because what I'm realizing is, because people have come into this faith later in life and all they know is the principles, they don't know the back of the house. And I'm asking you to cook a full course meal. You can't cook a 4-course meal if you've only been the hostess. And I'm not coming at hostess staff. Do you understand what I'm saying here? So if you've only been in the hostess stand, you've only been in the waiting room, you haven't seen that we have this beautiful restaurant. You don't know that we have this immaculate kitchen and we're cooking designer meals for you. So I've realized I need to provide people some of their own spiritual grounding and education and understanding of who they are as a theological person, so that they can make informed decisions about Article 2. If you don't understand who you are in the context of this faith system, because we are a faith system, how can you make good decisions about how the faith moves forward? If you only see yourself as a Sunday morning tithing, 7 principles person, I'm asking. Well, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if all you do is you give your money in the stewardship campaign, you show up every Sunday, you volunteer a few times. If that's all you're doing, and now I'm asking you to dig in the depth of your spirit and define who you are and what you value, there's a mismatch there, right? I'm asking you to do something you've never had to do before. So I'm realizing we have to give people the skills and the foundation and the personal understanding so that they can really appreciate this restaurant, really appreciate the offerings of Unitarian Universalism. Listen, y'all, just as much as I'm a minister, I'm also a chef. I own this whole restaurant. I don't want just your experience at the front door to matter. I don't want the welcome just to matter. I want you to leave and be in the parking lot almost able to drive because you are so full. I want you to be so enamored with the experience. You have to decide if you can go back in the restaurant just to thank the minister, to thank the chef again. So I know we're short on time. I just want to say we have to let people understand the depth of what they're being offered and get past the hello, past the 7 principles, and show them the depth of this ministry so that they can eat and be full. Aisha.
It is always a pleasure to be together every Thursday and dig deep. And we go deep and pretty quickly, which I appreciate. Thank you, Janine. I don't know if you have any last words. We have 60 seconds left. We have a producer extraordinaire, Tanner Linden, who keeps us on track. I appreciate that.
Just to say thank you. Thanks for asking me to join the team. This was juicy already today, and I really appreciate this conversation and all of you.
And next week, we'll have another fabulous episode. And what's fun is now we get kind of it'll be like a surprise meal of who is co-hosting each Thursday. So we have just an exciting group of folks who host I don't know how many places nationally, internationally, that we have these conversations about Unitarian Universalism, our chosen faith. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The View.